Let's bring in international relations expert Victor Odoeme, who is a professor of public international law at Veritas University here in Abuja. Thank you so much for joining us on the news tonight.
My pleasure being here.
Okay, so you had the wrap-up from Adefemi, our correspondent on ground there. But let me ask you, President Tinubu did frame Nigeria as open for business, as you usually would say on these trips. But how significant is this visit for strengthening partnerships, particularly because it's coming at a time when there's a lot of geopolitics realignment at the moment, particularly with France, that has had issues with its allies on the continent and is trying to make more friends with English-speaking Africa.
Yeah, let me say that I want to give kudos to the president for what he's doing right now, because international relations strives on bilateral agreements, bilateral relationships. And principally that's because no state in the world exists in a state of autarky. So what is happening today is that, you know, the Nigerian president is trying to market Nigeria positively to the leader of the Francophone world. And particularly, like you mentioned, because of the strange relationship that's existing between France and its allies in the West African region. And Nigeria being a super state within that enclave, the only Anglophone country that's almost sandwiched by Francophone countries, is a step in the right direction for France to cut Nigeria at this moment. And I think it should yield positive results.
How do we use this to our advantage, considering that France is having problems on the continent with its allies? Can we use this to our advantage? Because President Bola Tinubu also said today that you can partner with anybody, but if you do not partner with Nigeria, then you're not ready.
That's a fair statement for him to have made. And the advantage we will gain from it is France is known for its military might. You know, and I think one of the things that the president advocates and that they should liaise with Nigeria is on the front of security, because even though France is actually having some issues with its allies in the sub-region, but that has not been totally severed. And if you also want to draw our attention to the fact that those allies also have allegiance to Nigeria, you will know that any relationship France has with Nigeria will rub off on all of them, both the continent, both France itself. And that's what we're looking at. But the snag here is that when we talk about bilateral relations, you know, it works better, you know, when countries have things to exchange. Incidentally, I doubt if we have much to exchange with France at this moment. Oil, which is what the rest of the world come here to cut over, particularly the best crude in the world, the Bonny Light. You know, the crude production is not very high, and I wonder what we're going to exchange, except if we're going to exchange human relations and, you know, maybe have more of Nigerians go over to France to provide services. And in all, I know that it's good for Nigeria, at least having an ally in that way, particularly where nations of the world are realigning with the existence of BRICS, you know, for those countries who are trying to break away from the monetary policies controlled by the US. So I think this is a positive direction.
And talking about positives, there are reports of increased capital inflows between Q3 of 2023 and Q2 of 2024, with even the CBN MPC recently alluding to the fact that capital inflows are increased and they're looking good. But let me ask you, does this validate President Tinubu's global trotting that has raised criticisms in some quarters? I mean, does this shut the naysayers to say he's traveling a lot?
Yeah, I was surprised when I saw that myself. When I saw that today, I was a bit surprised, because the so-called naysayers, I don't know, I'm not speaking to any statistics on the table, saying that the way the economy is running at this moment, it's difficult for us to say that we are making positives in terms of economic advancement and the rest of them. But then, how these things are measured are beyond what the ordinary man on the street will understand. Yeah, so it would be a good thing to know that there's an increased trade relations between Nigeria and France at this moment. And I think something that needs to be sustained. While France may be having issues with its direct allies, I mean those Anglophone countries, Francophone countries within the sub-region, nothing stops them from, you know, cutting new friends. And that's the way to go in international relations.
We've seen this move before, where there's a lot of traveling by Nigerian presidents, but they don't really yield a lot, nothing tangible to write home about. How does President Bola Tinubu avoid making those mistakes to ensure that, you know, it's worth it?
I don't know how he's going to do that. I have mentioned it earlier that, you know, this globetrotting and is just a foreign policy angle. But then the most important thing is that, you know, if you have a conducive climate for investments, you really don't need to go preaching about yourself. People know they have embassies here, they have companies that work here, and those people file back reports annually and monthly. You know, so they will be the ones to say that the economy of this country is picking up now. It's not about you going there to tell them, look, we can do this, we can do this. I learned where he was saying that, you know, Nigeria is making a whole lot of progress in terms of security. I wonder what that means. I wonder what that contributes in the midst of what is going on. But then, I'm not speaking for the government. I don't know what they have in mind. They haven't briefed us exactly what they are looking for. But I know that bilateral relations and all this globetrotting, one way or the other, you know, has a positive. But the level is what I don't know on a scale of 1 to 100. And
finally, in the broader context of the African continent and what we're seeing Nigeria do you understand the foreign policy, and has this really influenced the continent's repositioning in this geopolitics we're seeing in the world? Is Nigeria taking the lead?
Nigeria is taking the lead, unfortunately it is, because our population...
When you say unfortunately and then it is,
it
does sound like an irony.
It sounds like an irony, and that is an irony. But then the fact remains that when you talk to statistics is that we have the population, and when you're talking about population, it does a lot in human relations between countries, whether it's on the formal sector or on the informal sector. We may not be scoring points exactly on the formal sector, but in the informal sector, Nigeria scores a whole lot of points. The market of the West African region, almost from Benin Republic all the way to Côte d'Ivoire, is literally controlled by Nigeria. So it may be in the informal sector, but one way or the other, maybe not foreign direct investments. Yeah, but then the remittances that come from those angles also has a booster effect on Nigerian economy. Yeah. Okay,
thank you so much. Professor of Public International Law at Veritas University, Victor Odoeme. Thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure. Thank you.